And we're joined by two guests who have something to say about that. They've listened to the minister. Safwan Javed is the drummer for Wide Mouth Mason. Welcome, as well as Howard Knopf, joining us from our Ottawa bureau. Hi, gentlemen. I want to start with you, Safwan. Do you like these changes? Is this going to strengthen things for artists and protect your property or not?
We don't believe it will. We believe if we look at the example south of the border, which this legislation essentially mimics, there's been very little done in terms of helping artists. Essentially, it's been a strategy of suing fans and using digital locks to dictate to fans and consumers how they interact with content. And so we don't believe that this benefits musicians in any way. We believe it benefits the corporate stakeholders, the major labels.
How so?
I'm not speaking for any of my clients. I'm speaking for myself. I've been around the block on this for about 20-odd years. With all respect to the minister, he and his officials, they came out today and said, this is a Made in Canada bill and they're proud of it. Well, I got to say it's a Made Worse in Canada bill, and they should not be proud of it. I've been struggling all day to find something positive to say about it, but I can't, frankly.
Why, Mr.
What looked like a good thing, which is
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but get specific about why it's so bad. What's wrong?
Well, I was just going to say.
Sure.
I was just going to say it seems to offer some exemptions and some new rights to consumers, but those rights are either trivial, like being able to tape a TV show. The Americans have been able to do that since 1984, for goodness sake, for later viewing, and a lot of those exceptions are made nugatory or meaningless by the technical protection measures, which are as tight as a drum and probably even worse than in the United States. And the one thing that looked attractive was the limit on damages of $500, except if you scratch the surface and read the fine print, it looks like my adversarial friends in the record industry won't take too long to figure out that that's a limit per copyright owner. So if you've got 1,000 or 2,000 songs on your computer, as many people do, there could be hundreds or thousands of copyright owners, and do the arithmetic. So I think that there's a big problem with that. It's not what it seems to be, and there are a lot of things in the bill that don't seem to be what they seem to be. The educational exception is unnecessary and potentially harmful to everybody, including the educators. The bill's anti-consumer, it's anti-research.
Sorry, Mr. Knopf, can I just quickly get back to the example you used of thousands of songs? Are you saying that $500 limit, what did you say? It's per copyright owner, essentially? So what does that mean? Is it every song or not?
Well, every song generally has 3 copyright owners: one of the music, one of the sound recording, and one of the performer's performance. So everybody's concerned about, for example, that poor woman in the United States, Jamie Thomas, who got nailed for $222,000 for downloading 9 songs, and now they're saying, well, that can't happen in Canada. Well, I'm not so sure it can't happen in Canada, because if these lawsuits now become possible and viable and economical, as it seems that this bill is setting forth, I'm not sure that the $500 limit is actually going to help anybody. It may actually enable large lawsuits, because the $500 limit would apply to one copyright owner. We'll have to see if this is fixable in drafting or not, and we'll have to see how the courts interpret it, but it's got a lot of problems in it at first glance. I don't think it does what the government says it's going to do at all. Maybe a Trojan horse.
Mr. Javed, a lot of consumers, I think, felt justified in stealing music, essentially, or downloading it for free, because they feel they were ripped off for so many years with very high prices on CDs. How do artists respond to that kind of sentiment, even if it is misguided?
I don't know that it's misguided. I think if you're looking, you have to look at which CDs you're talking about, who the copyright holder is that you're particularly dealing with. I think in the case of major labels, I know as an artist who's been on major label contracts that we also feel like they're overpriced and that consumers are having to pay exorbitant prices, which at the end of the day we don't see the profits from. The label sees the profits from it. So I wouldn't characterize it as stealing. At the end of the day, I might characterize the initial price points as the criminal act.
I don't have much time. I want to start with Mr. Knopf. If you could sort of quickly sum up, if this becomes law tomorrow, which it won't, how will it change things?
As I say, it'll be a Made Worse in Canada bill. We will end up with possibly one of the most draconian copyright acts anywhere in the world. There's a lot of criticism of the U.S. legislation, even including from the architect of it himself, Mr. Bruce Lehman, who's a top American official, now says that the DMCA was the wrong way to go and the WIPO treaties were the wrong way to go. We've adopted the very worst aspects of the DMCA here, made them even worse still in some respects. There's really nothing in this bill for consumers that isn't given by the one hand and taken away by the other. And the educational exception, which will be trumpeted as a great thing for the educators, is also something of a Trojan horse. It won't help the educators, it may hurt them, and it will certainly hurt everybody else by implying that ordinary use of the internet is something that has to be paid for those who are not in the educational tent, and probably result in some kind of a tariff being slapped on ISPs and everybody's internet bill going up. I have yet to find something good for consumers in here. I'm going to spend the rest of the evening looking, and I'll have something to say about it on my blog if I do.
Easy reading on a proposed copyright bill. I'm being facetious. Mr. Javed, just a quick final thought to you.
You know, I'd like to see the government bring more stakeholders to the table. Let's have a discussion on how we can truly make a made in Canada approach. Rather than following the US example of punishing for infringement, let's think about compensating or remuneration for copyright holders, and something that embraces the technology and the vast potentials that it holds.
From Widemouth Mason. Yes, go ahead.
I really applaud my young friend, who's both a musician and obviously a very talented law student, so he speaks from two important experiences. And the key thing this is about is, you know, why can't consumers get to use the technology and the software and the hardware and the content that they buy in a reasonable way that they expect? Why do we need it to be all locked down? I noticed that the critic for the Liberals came out first thing and said, this is going to turn a police state.
Gentlemen,
that's his words, not mine.
I appreciate both your thoughts on this. Safwan Javed and obviously Howard Knopf from copyright expert and lawyer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.